How's everyone doing? How is everyone doing? Is everyone ready for the news? You guys bring your own lists? Got anything interesting, spicy for us to review today? We have some pretty good stuff to cover. Let me tell you, we have some pretty good stuff to cover. Um, we have some pretty good stuff, I think. We actually also have just a lot of stuff. A lot. So maybe we'll go a little bit quickly over some of the stuff. Some of the stuff will be like informative. We won't talk about it a whole lot. Yeah. Now, I've done a few things. I've installed a little bit of software to help me try to manage this. I am still working on getting us. I'd like to have a way to easily post all the links of everything that we cover. So I'm working on a way to do that. So yeah. I'm working on like I don't know, maybe some page, some like website page that you can go to and get a list of all the links that we covered. I'm gonna figure that out. I'm gonna figure that out. But yeah, we have some good stuff to cover. And there was just like a lot of random stuff. So like there's not even just a ton in security. While there are some stuff in security and some stuff I think we should talk about and maybe the impacts of, there was a lot of stuff just like the world coin and stuff like that that launched. Yeah, we can talk about it. I can give you guys my thoughts. I'm not sure my thoughts mean a whole lot. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. For the most part, we'll just cover the stuff. So, for any of you who might be new to this section, every Sunday I just cover the news that happens in the clouds, in open source, anything that I find. If you're part of the Discord, you can drop some stuff there in the news section and we'll cover it now. Also, if you find something that you think I missed, please let me know in chat and we'll cover it. All right. Russell, you're like a month behind in your joke. You're like a month behind. Would have been funny a month ago. All right, let's. Oh, actually, let me. I have two important. Like, I think I have two really high things on the security side of things. Um, and then I have, there's a couple other things that came up in security that we're going to talk about. A couple, one Google Cloud issue, and then maybe a few if we have any Ubuntu followers. So there's a couple things that I found that I thought might be interesting to some developers. But the first one that I wanted to talk about was a more restrictive or more strict uh, um, risk management strategy and governance and incident disclosure by the SEC. So the SEC adopts rules on cybersecurity risk management strategy, governance, and incidents disclosure by public companies. So this is going to govern anybody that's listed on our public marketplaces, like the Nasdaq and places like that. So any place that is a public company on one of those is going to have to follow these rules by the SEC. The short boiled down is if you have a disclosure and this is the key word, that has impact on shareholders, or, where it may be material to investors, you have 4 days to, make a disclosure. You have 4 days. So this is going to require public companies to basically make public statements on cybersecurity incidents. But I do have to say that it's only cybersecurity incidents that may be material to investors. So I think there's 2 things that are interesting on this. This has some vagary. I don't think vagary is a word, but I like to use it. This has some vagary around what actually has to get released, and because it's if it may be material to investors. So I'm interested to see. What I'm really interested is to see the first fine by the SEC. So basically, the SEC is going to fine somebody for not releasing something that they should have, and they'll probably go to court over it, whether it was following the guidelines or not. And that, I think, is going to really play a pivotal role in understanding this may be material to investors. Now, I think that this is actually, you can actually look backwards and see stuff like fires and stuff, a factory and a fire and whatnot. Like, there are some ground rules already set down of what would be pertinent to investors, set down by the SEC. But I don't think that we fully understand it in the cybersecurity incident. If you leaked a encryption key, but you don't think anybody took it, is that pertinent to investors? I don't know. The other thing is, this requires you to know that you had a cybersecurity incident. If you are unaware, there is no obligation. So yeah. I'm also, this is something I believe Russell brought up, is he's kind of interested in seeing if there's an increase in the number of disclosures. Now that they're legally required to disclose, are we going to see an uptick in the number of disclosures we actually see? Because I would assume Russell is correct that there are some companies that choose to hide things that might, I think probably not the really big serious ones, but maybe in that middle ground where it's like, this is kind of gray. I bet you some more of those people are going to step up and actually, to avoid an SEC fine or going to court. So yeah. All right. I haven't been a fond of a lot of internet regulation. But I think that this is a good first step. Now we'll see how this plays out and see how it is, because maybe this is a terrible ruling, but I do like the direction this is going. Oh, dude, Russell, that's not, that's devious insider trading on the other side. Nexus Null Dev, how are you doing? We're covering the news every Sunday, 4 p.m. EDT time, my time. It's on my calendar. I stream the news, so hopefully you like the news. We cover a breadth of news. Some I'm more informed on, some I'm less informed on. Right now, we're covering the security portion, which we're talking about the new SEC rules for cybersecurity risk management strategy, governance, and incident disclosure by public companies. But yeah, so we just covered that. I hope your day is going well. So the other thing that I thought was really important for most of you, and I'm actually going to link this. This was released by Checkmark, or Checkmarks. Anyways, a cybersecurity. This is the first known targeted open source supply chain attacks against the banking sector. Now, to be the first known, this actually has a lot of quality. Like, not only is it targeted open source supply chain attacks, it's against the banking sector. There has been other targeted open source supply chains, not in the banking sector, and this is not the first open source supply chain So to be clear, this one has this is yeah. Russell says, will also be interesting to see all the non-American companies' response, especially the ones that are, i.e., the ones that are listed on the U.S. exchanges but have headquarters in another country. I think they'll play by the SEC ruling because they can still get fined if they're listed as a public company in the U.S. exchanges. So, Russell, I would assume that the ones that are listed here will play by those same rules or get fined. And they'll either pay the fine or have to go to court. You think there'll be a few countries that will not play ball? Oh, there's definitely countries that won't play ball. 100%. I agree with that part. The problem is if they don't pay the fine and they fail in court, they can be delisted. So I think that's a pretty dangerous game, though. Now, I don't know. I don't know. You may be right. I may be completely wrong. We'll have to see how it plays out. They'd have to find out they were hacked and when it was. Absolutely. This ruling does not cover if you didn't know you were hacked. Absolutely does not cover that. So you're absolutely right. If you don't know that you were hacked, yes. Obviously, they'd have to do an investigation, Russell. They'd have to do an investigation and find out that they knew via internal documents or whistleblowers. I agree that the SEC isn't super powerful in those regards, but they have gone to court. So all right. So the next thing here that we wanted to talk about in security was this here. So the first target, I think this is really critical for people because I don't know that there's enough understanding about how a supply chain attack happens. There's actually the sad part is supply chains can be complicated and you probably don't even know your entire supply chain. I would guess. I have worked on SDOMs and I bet you don't know where all the software comes because you use a project that uses other projects that use other projects. And so understanding your supply chain and how it could be attacked is a very difficult problem that I don't think people. Now, this is a targeted open source, which means they actually targeted a specific open source project to target banks, which was pretty interesting to say the least. So no surprise, this came from the NPM platform. Obviously, that's where a lot of these happen. So basic sorry. So basically, they leveraged npm to upload a couple of packages containing a pre-install script that executed malicious object their malicious intent upon the when they installed. So yeah, it had a little bit of interesting stuff because the contributor behind these packages was linked to a LinkedIn profile page that was posing as an employee of the targeted bank. So basically, all of this went into attacking a bank, a specific bank. So and yeah, the bank wasn't actually aware of this activity. And so yeah, there was actually a lot of things going in on this attack to do a coordinated supply chain attack. I actually think people should read this because we don't have to cover it. We can cover it at the end of the show if people are really interested in going through each one of these, because there was different frameworks, there was different things like the LinkedIn profile claiming to be part of the working for the bank. And so there was a bunch of stuff that happened to execute this attack. And again, this is the type of stuff that I don't think people understand very well. So yeah, I thought it was a good read. Now, Google had a breach this last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It was a little while ago, but Google did shore up its log permissions for the builder bot. So we talked about this. I think it was last week about the issue with their builder bot, and basically they have rectified that. So I just wanted to follow up on that just because we had talked about it. There is a new OpenSSH vulnerability that exposes Linux system to remote command injection. So it's in this CVE here, so you can check it out. So if you're using OpenSSH, this is a very important disclosure. It seems like OpenSSH has had a lot of CVEs recently. It doesn't have a score just yet, but a remote execution is a pretty severe. So on top of that, there was more bad news from Citrix. Citrix had another 0-day target. This is their second one this year. So if you're using Citrix, you need to update. This is a 9.8 out of 10. I believe the CVE is right here. I'll just copy and paste that in there for you guys. Time for closed SSH. I mean, SSH is dangerous. I think you should shy away from using SSH. I say that. Obviously, I use it internally, locally here, but I think as corporations, I think moving away from SSH is probably... SSH has... You know, you need something like... you need something like Teleport to do SSH, to do zero trust and stuff like that. Unfortunately, SSH by definition is kind of a trusted system. So yeah. I found the really good write-up. We already talked about this, so I'm just going to post the link for you all. This is the write-up on, like, a follow-up write-up on the Microsoft keys. So I know that we talked about the Azure AD, which was renamed to Azure Entra, something like that. But this like goes into depth on the keys, and so if you're interested to understand more of the effects of that breach, this is a really good place to start. I have read it once. I need to read it again because it goes into a lot of detail that I'm not going to be able to just regurgitate for you all. But I did find it pretty interesting, and it kind of, as a follow-up, the CISA agency actually released a Azure Encar. I know I screwed it up. I know I screwed up. Released this basically, which is a directive for government agencies for how to monitor and detect the activity that basically could happen because of this. So I think this is also really good if you're using Exchange. Exchange is definitely been... Exchange always has problems, it seems. It's another one of those things that always seems to have some sort of legacy bug that's been found. So anyways, if you're running it, I would read through this. Even though you're not a government agency, this is probably a good first step to secure it. And basically, this is just to see if you've been compromised. This isn't actually how to shore up it's already been patched. It's already been patched. But if you've been compromised, you need to be able to find out. So all right, if you're a Ubuntu user, this next one's going to make you just a little bit sad. So almost 40% of Ubuntu users are vulnerable to new privilege escalation flaws. I can read, I promise. 2 new Linux vulnerabilities introduced recently into the Ubuntu kernel crate. into the Ubuntu kernel crate the potential for unprivileged local users to gain elevated privileges on a massive number of devices. Now, this doesn't really affect if you have elevated privileges, but a lot of people operate without elevated privileges, and the ability to gain those elevated privileges is pretty bad. Also, Ubuntu is probably, I know we're all Arch fans here, but Ubuntu is one of the most widely used Linux distributions, I think. Okay, so we're going really quickly. FBI seized of a Mastodon server. I think that this is pretty fantastic. Or not fantastic, hilarious is kind of what I was going to say, but maybe not hilarious. So there's a lot of stuff about protecting your data and going to a distributed service or something like a Fediverse, but you don't realize, and I think this is a good wake-up call to people, that you don't realize whoever server you have on, A, they could be doing other stuff on that server that you don't know, and B, it doesn't mean that it's safe from an FBI raid or other government agency. So just keep that in mind. You are trusting your data with somebody, whether it's Facebook or Joe's basement laptop that's running something. So keep that in mind. Now, Twitter also ran into problems with security. Now, Twitter has been rebranding to X. I call it X. That's what I call it. But as they rebrand, we brought up last week that they were going to have security issues with certs and things like that. We have all done domain name changes. They haven't even gotten to the domain name change. It's still twitter.com. But the rebranding of the icon has actually caused Edge, Microsoft Edge, sorry, I don't say that word very often, to actually, and actually I guess it's a built-in feature of all Chromium-based browsers, which is most of them other than Firefox, to basically call this out as a suspicious activity. So if you're trying to go to twitter.com, because they redid their app logo, yeah, it's basically forcing all users to review the logo. I thought that was fantastic. Why doesn't the FBI just make their own social media site? The slogan could say, "We promise we won't give your data to anyone else. Your data is safe with us." I thought that they reserved BigBrother.com, but I could be mistaken. Now, if you think the supply chain, and I meant to bring this up when we talked about the first known supply chain, targeted open source supply chain attack. Now, there are two pieces of good news. One thing that I think Google did really well, and I don't have a website open for it, but they released it a little while ago. Basically, they have exported their own packages that they do their own security review on and build through to basically help you protect your supply chain. There's other companies like SUSE and Red Hat that do their own builds of all those packages, which have some sort of security level built in through them. But there's also a new player in town to help you upgrade your supply chain. Palo Alto Networks has a new CI/CD security module. I don't use Palo. I can't talk about anything more about them than this release, other than this is helping for your continuous delivery pipelines to help secure them and your supply chains. So interesting. If you use Palo Alto Networks, I would be interested into hearing more about them. The last thing, and I think this probably doesn't affect very many people, as many people I don't know how many people run Linux, VMware, ESXi servers, but if you do in this channel, there is a new version of BitLocker that is targeting VMware ESXi servers, the Linux version specifically. So it used to be that if you were on Linux, you were safe from this, and that turns out not to be the case now. Now, I do believe Russell said something about us talking about overlay FS, the file system, today. Abyss Locker sounds like the indie game of the year. Gosh dang it, it kind of does. It kind of sounds like one of those cheesy 4 people games that you sit down as like a fun party game. The Abyss Locker. Like you gotta like there is some abyss that you have to like lock up in time, like, and you have funky controls. Absolutely. So I don't know. I don't actually have anything in the overlay FS on the news this week. So Russell, I would beseech you to supply me with a link so that we can cover that in the appropriate section. Doomkeeper, Wall World, Abyss Locker. Okay, we should be indie game developers now. Yep, yep. It does fit right in. So I don't know, Russell, if you were saying that Overlays FS had something for security. I did not have it. I have these things grouped into these tabs. I think it's going to bring us a better experience, hopefully. I do continuously try to improve this. One of these days on stream, we're going to update my thing that scrapes the internet for interesting stories. And hopefully we can... My hope and goal is instead of me rating whether something's interesting or not, everybody on stream gets to rate whether something was interesting enough to help us pick more interesting topics in the future. So yeah. Oh. So I didn't read into that too much. I didn't look at the CVEs specifically. I read that as a vulnerability in the Linux kernel caused by inadequate permission checks, allowing a local attacker to gain elevated privileges. So if we're talking about the same thing... Oh, okay. I see where this is coming from. I didn't actually make that connection. I didn't read this CVE this time. I'm sorry. Overlay FS. Skip permission checking for trusted overlay FS. An unprivileged user may set privileges extended attributes on the mounted files, leading them to be set to up. Yeah, okay. That's horrifying. It only got a 7.8, and I'm guessing it only got a 7.8 because you had to be a user on the machine already, or have access to the machine. Got it. No, this is good. So I did cover it. I didn't miss it. I just didn't realize I had gotten it. Right. Not remote code. I think in general, when I see these, the remote code execution ones, especially the easier ones, have the much higher vulnerability. If you have to have a user, although 7.8 is very high for you have to have a user, which means you pretty much make the entire system vulnerable. From my, yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into the cloud news. We're gonna start with AWS. I think I've avoided it for long enough. There was one person that claimed that this was when I was still streaming it to YouTube, that because I did it in the same order, I was favoring AWS, which I do have the most experience with. So then I started like switching them around to be like, I don't actually favor one, but then I always forget which one I did last. All right, so Amazon Route 53 adds support for 14 additional top-level domains. Not a big thing, but if you wanted a .actor, Air Force, Bet, Degree, Games, Gives, GmbH, Group, Press, Site, Space, Tech, Store, and Wine, you now have them. Yeah, yeah. I think it would go straight to root. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 CVE monopoly. Oh, okay. So we have some new routes in Route 53. Probably not a big deal, but if you're trying to, yes. Now I believe, yeah. So, anyways, so there you go. Amazon Code Catalyst supports deployments to Elastic Kubernetes Service. So EKS got a little bit of a bump. If you're a Code Catalyst person, you can now use it with EKS. So that's pretty awesome. Just tying services together, not really a big deal. Announcing it, I mean, I say it because if you use both of them, it is kind of a big deal. But it's also not a groundbreaking new release. That's why we're not like touching a lot on it. It's not like something where I would be like, well, you should adopt Code Catalyst now to use it with EKS. Like, no, I don't think so. Announcing Amazon ECS templates for Amazon EC2 spot instance blueprints. Now, I think that this was pretty cool. So basically, you now can use the templates for the Elastic Container Services with the spot blueprints, which means you could save some money leveraging this. So does Route 53 not allow you to do lookups to any top level domain? What do you mean? This is Route 50, this is what they support as a domain that you can register through Route 53. So you can get your domain through Route 53. They expanded which ones Route 53 supports. Every domain is different with which ones they allow. This is what they support as a register. Sorry, I'm sorry if I was not this as a register is what they support, not what they support you going like routing to. Sorry. Yeah, that's a very good clarification. Very good clarification. So, anyways, this spot instance blueprints could help you save some money if you were leveraging those. So I would be careful with spot instances. You have to be okay with the rug getting pulled out from underneath you. That's my only thing that can happen. I think you get a minute warning. Okay, so got ads? I'll wait one moment while you have ads. I'm sorry about that. So, yeah. We do have coming up, we have some stuff about that basically we have a few things coming up that are in both the AI as well as cloud. I'm kind of covering them loosely in both. We're going to cover different aspects of them. Yeah. All right. And I hope you guys are having a good weekend. I hope you're ready for this next week. For those of you who work, for those of you who work on other things, I hope that you also have a good weekend. I think I can see when ads end. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Ads are in progress for another minute. I need to have filler content. For those of you who don't have ads, because I know it's kind of weird. Like some regions in the world don't get ads, whereas some do. So I feel bad. Like, oh well, we'll just sit here for another minute and a half. I do push them off as far as possible. So I have to do 3 minutes every hour. That's the rule. And then I also don't. I get to disable pre-roll ads, so you don't get ads when you join, which is pretty cool. I think. I need secret news. That's what I need. I need secret news. This is the news. There 3-minute secret news that you get if you're a subscriber. That's what it needs to be. Oh my gosh, I like that. Next week we have they don't even know that they're going to be missing this because they're still in an ad. And next I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible person. All right, we're not doing that. That sounds fun though. Okay, maybe we'll do it, but just something for fun. Just some fun news for the secret news section. Welcome, welcome for all of you joining. How to get around Twitch ads with Firefox features. You know, I'm always torn because like I want the platform to survive. So the platform needs to make money. To survive so that I can do these things and help people and share. So it's always like a catch-22. Like I don't like the ads, but at the same time I like having a platform to use to stream to you all. So all right, ads are done. That would be really nice if I could just say, hey, especially for like this section where it's news, can you just do banner ads? Do a banner ad through the whole thing. Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. Let's get back into the AWS news. Amazon EC2 P5 instances powered by the NVIDIA H100 Tensor Core GPUs for accelerated generative AI and HPC applications. So I really hate this part right here because honestly, it doesn't matter what type of AI you're doing. The NVIDIA H1 Tensor Cores are pretty amazing. They can do a lot of stuff. They're super expensive. The cheapest one of these instances are going to cost you a pretty penny. I can't even afford to run a spot instance of it for an hour. But anyways, these things are pretty massive. Yeah, so 192 vCPUs, 2 terabytes of memory, and yeah, it's pretty much a beast of machine learning. But there's other things that you can do it, HCP applications as well. These are pretty cool instances. I'm glad to see them here. I would love sometime to get to test one of these things out. Amazon, if you're listening, I would love to test one of these things out. Amazon, NVIDIA can't build their, yeah, seriously. These things are pretty amazing. And these P5 machines are pretty fantastic. So anyways, if you're doing some generative AI, supposedly these new P5s are about 40% cheaper to train on. So if you're doing some AI, if you're doing some GPU accelerated things, heavy GPU work, supposedly, these are actually about 40% cheaper than the other things that AWS has so far that have GPUs on them. So, now I don't know. I have not verified that, and I'm assuming that consumes the entire P5 48XL, which means that you're not using just half of it. Like you're leveraging it to its fullest. So, anyways. That's pretty cool. Another thing in the AI, again, double dipping here, this is cloud news too, enabled foundation models to complete tasks with agents for Amazon Bedrock. I didn't really understand what this was from reading the title. I actually had to dig into this one just a little bit. Russell, the Null Cloud is releasing in what, like 1 day? Because it absolutely is not. Absolutely is not. Because maybe the end of August is what I will shoot for. But I 100% believe that HCP should be serverless. Serverless. I mean, you don't manage anything. All right. So I had to dig into this to understand it fully. But basically what it is it provides foundational models to do things based off of generative AI. So basically, with Amazon's generative AI, you can generate a response, but there's no way to really do anything with that. Like with ChatGPT, you can ask it a question, it can give you some feedback, but there's no way to do anything with that. And these foundational models are going to give you a way, I've not tried it, I'm not seeing how well it works, to basically act upon that return. So act upon that return value. So I think that there's some interesting opportunities to do stuff with this inside of AWS. You could do like something on Lambda or something like that, execute something else. Is there any GCP? This is the last AWS. Then we're hitting GCP. There is just a few pieces of GCP. Then I want you to get to bed. Absolutely. Butt in that with that. So AWS released these agents. I think they seem pretty cool. You can basically act upon the generated output with doing some stuff. This kind of is like the ChatGPT plugins that are available, but all in AWS. So if your company works all in AWS, I think it's a pretty cool thing. All right, let's move on to GCP. Sorry, Nexus Null. Sorry, it's late. Next time, start with that. I'll make sure to cover the stuff that you're interested in first. 100%. GCP, create a pipeline and release in Google Cloud Console. So this is an expansion of their delivery pipelines and basically allows you to create create two GKE clusters or configure two Cloud Run services, and it allows you to create two delivery pipeline with two targets, it allows you to create the delivery pipeline and a release from the Google Cloud Console. I think this is just a nice to have, maybe make some things a little bit faster for people leveraging this. So I think this is a good step, a good thing that they've added. It's not groundbreaking by any means. Ooh, what if I did a poll? Oh, I like that. So each segment, I know we do like security and whatnot, but we could really do that by poll. I like that. We might need to automate it, but I like that. This is another thing from Google Cloud that I wanted to share. There's the link to it because it's really a decision tree. It's not something I can cover, but this is basically helping you understand the best way to do X in Google Cloud. So if you're in Google Cloud and you have something you want to do, and I don't mean Twitter, not building Twitter, but if you're wanting to do a data and analytic workflow in GCP, it basically steps through and gives you like the high level things for data ingestion, and they give high level things about each one of them. So if you're trying to get together a pipeline, get it together a data flow, I think this is really awesome. I wish more clouds would do some stuff like this, and I know some have, but this is actually really cool. I like walked through it with something like ideas I had in mind, and I was like, this is cool because I can say, oh, this is how I want to ingest data, and then I can figure out where I would do data processing. Thought it was cool. You guys have the link. Nexus Null News. I do believe it's Null News now. I do believe it's named after you. It's in honor of you, so you get to pick Nexus Null. You get to pick. That's fine. So, anyways, I thought this was really nice. It's not like a new feature or anything, but I wanted to show you guys because it's GCP, and if you're interested in GCP, this is where it's at. All right, the last thing here, I had another thing, but this is not it. My bad. I don't know where that tab went. We might find it later. I have this new setup where there's tab groups, and I'm thinking maybe it got lost in the null, in the ether. Not Ethereum, but it got lost in the ether. All right, well, that's it for GCP. Oh, your pick is just to keep it how you want it to be, Nexus Null? All right. You know what, Nexus Null? I will, are you in the Discord? If I find it later on, I will at you and send it to you in Discord. I apologize about that. I did have a third thing. I know that. I only know that because I had 3 for GCP, 4 for Azure, 5 for AWS. It kind of was working out as a little pattern. So then I did it for, anyways. But good night, Nexus Null. Have a good week. Hope you have a good week. Get to bed, and I'll see you guys. I'll see you next week. Oh, you got to work. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to work too. If that makes you feel better, I'll be working right along with you. Like, not actually along with you, but this week I'll be working. So take care. All right, let's jump into Azure. Azure released this. This is their third blog post about their continued evolution in security. I think this came out at an opportune time after they've had massive failures, not only in Azure AD, but in Exchange. Now, I think it's still a good blog post to read because I think that it had. So I read it a little bit. I mean, I read it all. I read the whole thing. It's not a super long read, but it does kind of paint a story on how Azure's evolving, and I think it's good to read from the perspective of, hey, this is where we're at, and we want to get better. And that's pretty much every single company. Every single company should say, this is where we're at security-wise, and we want to get better. Every single company. And so seeing somebody else's path, I think is actually a really good thing. So I think, now I'm not saying that you should do everything that Azure is doing here, but you can see what other people have thought. Save for another week. There was no Google shut down GCP. Or they decide to rate limit everybody. Meanwhile, inside of a Google boardroom, instead of creating more data centers to handle more demand, we could just rate limit everybody to handle more customers. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a really bad a couple weeks ago. All right. Azure SQL public preview updates for mid-July. If you're using it, use always encrypted. So basically they brought a little bit better encryption security to Azure SQL. That's why I brought it up. Not the biggest of deals, but it's really good to have the always encrypted. The other thing, another security thing, is default. They updated their default TLS policy for Azure Application Gateway. Basically, this bumps you up mandatorily to TLS version 1.2 instead of 1.1 as the minimum, and up to 1.3, which is really fantastic. So basically, any new application is going to have this as its default policy, which is a good thing. But you should be aware of it. If you're using TLS 1.1, look, this shouldn't be the thing that stops you. You should stop using TLS 1.1. That should be the statement. Then we have Azure DevOps updates for July of 2013. So I know that some of us really like Azure DevOps. I know that Raw Code has started using it. And I've heard really good stuff about it. So there was a bunch of updates to it this month. I'm going to post these for you all. But the ones that I saw that were kind of interesting here was the updates to YAML cron schedules, which looked very interesting. I haven't actually gotten a chance to use it. Yes, this is going to cause applications if you're still using a TLS version. Now, the thing is, and maybe I didn't state this clearly, is this is only for new deployments. So if you have an existing Azure Application Gateway, it doesn't apply to it. It's also the default, not saying that you can't set that. This is basically the default configuration. But yes, you should be careful with this. 100% could cause you issues. All right. Other than that, there were some things around lifting the secret expiration check for Azure DevOps Auth, and the alert dismissals for dependency scanning alerts in advanced security. So this I think was one of the things Basically, you couldn't dismiss dependency scanning alerts, and you can now. So that's it for Azure and the cloud for the most part. We have some stuff that maybe falls in machine learning, maybe falls in cloud. But yeah, let's jump into our machine learning news. Now, this is my favorite post. This is my favorite news. Of the week. We have all known for the last OpenAI's WorldCoin. I do believe that's not part of AI news. I do believe that's not AI news. And that's in a different category than my most favorite. It's not OpenAI. It's by the same founder. I think that's a different thing, right? It's not OpenAI doing it. I'm not going to argue about that, though. I'm not going to argue that concept. All right. So we all know that 80% of Stack Overflow posts are now AI generated. That's just probably a fact. I made that up on the spot, so it's not actually a fact, but it is a statement that I have made. But never fear. Announcing Overflow AI. For all of you worried about this AI stuff, today marks the beginning of a new and exciting era for Stack Overflow. We are announcing our roadmap for the integration of generative AI into our public platform, Stack Overflow for Teams, and brand new product areas like IDE integration that brings a vast knowledge of 58 million questions and answers from our community right to the area where developers find focus and get work done. I thought that this was what ChatGPT already did. I'm confused because pretty sure I thought this was what ChatGPT already did. So, anyhow, this is Overflow AI. This question has already been asked. Yeah, I have seen that meme as well. And then one person recommended gaslighting Overflow AI to ask it if it's sure. Oh boy.